Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or over on our various social media pages that we are up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Frankly, whichever way works for you, however you want to be able to chime in, add your 2 cents, etc., that's the right place for you to be, particularly on a day like today, end of the week, getting towards the eventual end of the month and all the things that come after it. But specifically, that end of the week part here is very important, because that means that it is time for what we call Free for All Friday, meaning that we are taking on all the comments, all the calls, everything we can cram into 2 hours of the show, which is never quite enough, but we do our level best to make sure to talk about, the things that are certainly affecting us here in the borderland. That's a key aspect of it, but also a little bit beyond that today, because there's always more going on that we can get to even into the rest of the week, just talking about the local things. A couple of things that I do have top of mind, including at least one question that did come in from a listener, so we'll discuss that here for a bit. But otherwise, we do have those phone lines open. We will be taking those comments throughout the show here, so if you're over on the social media, you can add those comments, such as Patriot Check, taking advantage of the did not realize it was a feature of the YouTube. We'll be perfectly honest with you, how as soon as we even create the video, even before we're live, you can start adding your comments there. It has like the lobby, the waiting room kind of thing here. So, or some of her comments over there, assuming that, given the username there, about the classified document, saying most specifically that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Certainly heard that phrase before, and that's one of the things certainly been discussing going on around here. Ida Beza Gardner chiming in over on the Facebook page, GGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday, definitely, and wave there as well. And more comments, more likes, more reacts, those kind of things going on over there. So again, if that's what works for you, do that. We, of course, will have those phone lines open, if full up at the moment, and that'll be going on throughout the show. Of course, that number to call, if you choose to do so and chime in that way, is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have that up on the top of the screen for those of you over in social media land, but for those in the radio universe, we'll, of course, keep that going and keep those comments coming up throughout this. So again, whatever works for you, that's really the highlight, the focus, the main part of it, as we're definitely going to get into some stuff here. I'm going to try not to go forever, as I have been. We'll try to keep the conversation moving, I guess, is the point I'm trying to get to there, and not dwelling too much on a point. But if you bring up something interesting and are actually conversational about it, we can tend to go on for a while. But we'll try to get to as much as we can, again, cramming into 2 hours of the show. Just a couple of things I want to mention at the actual start of the program here today. According to the AP, there's actually been the new online appointment system for those seeking asylum exemptions, essentially has now been fully launched here. There was, of course, the CBP One app has been existing for a while now, since 2020 is actually noted, but this has not exactly been the full availability. So that's at least part of what was discussed, or the policy coming out of some of the recent, both presidential and Senate visits, was this policy coming forth. So seeing some of those changes here, and other reporting going on, including from our news partners there at KFOX 14, a very, I think, kind of critical thing about next week deadline coming up for federal prosecution officials going to make their decision, or the deadline rather, for them to make the decision on potentially seeking the death penalty for the indicted Walmart shooter here in El Paso. So, of course, it's notable there to mention that leading that charge, I guess you could say, not entirely clear on the decision process, I will be perfectly honest, but I mean, of course, Jaime Esparza, former El Paso district attorney, is now the U.S. attorney for the Western District of Texas, and will be heading that up. So, it's That's just an update. We've been committed to keeping you updated on that whole case and that situation. So this impending deadline, I know there's been a whole lot of kerfuffle and just major issues with the district attorney's office locally surrounding that. So knowing a little bit more about the actual case going on is probably important. Though also it should be noted here, actually came out yesterday, that El Paso District Attorney Bill Hicks has, speaking to our news partners at KFOX 14 on Thursday, says that he has selected a new trial team chief for the Walmart shooting case. Lorraine Hewitt is what he said, saying, quote, "She has several past capital murder and death penalty cases she has good experience on. I'm very pleased with that, and I think she's a good person to lead that team, so it's going to be a good prosecution. I'm very confident in that." So there's more issues there, but yeah, there's a lot going on there. And John, so more comments coming in over on the social media, including Eric von Holstein Rathlow. Yay, Friday. They're very happy to be here as well. And John Brazelton. Okay, you know what? You actually give me a little bit of clarity on why you accuse me of taking weeks off at a time. John saying every day is a weekend for me. So yeah, when we miss a day, it feels like a week then, I guess, from your perspective, if that's where we're going here. Because, I mean, yeah, we've got some days off, some things like that have been going on, but if we take off more than a day or two, we usually tell you and have some replacement programming in place. So whenever you accuse me for being gone for months on end, okay, that gives a little bit. We're doing months of Sundays kind of logic here. I guess I get that a little bit better. Anyway, of course, a lot more to talk about here, a lot more to be brought up. And so let's go ahead and dive straight into those phone lines. So again, that number 915-544-5876, for KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeastern line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. You know, with Fort Bliss in El Paso, defense spending affects El Paso.
Certainly.
Now, reports are that the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, was weighing a $75 billion defense budget cut from Republicans within his party. Now, I say do it. Use the money to help those countries where the immigrants are coming from so that they can stay there, and use the money to bolster border security. This is a national security issue, and that's what those money should be used for. So there's other kinds of threats besides Putin and China. And with all the money that we have spent, to protect ourselves from the Russians previously, the commies, Putin pulled off the greatest political coup in the history of the world. I mean, getting his useful idiot in the White House, identifying him 40 years ago, penetrating him, compromising him, playing him, and then getting him in the White House. And immediately Trump starts, criticizing NATO, saying he wants to get out of NATO and everything. Unbelievable. Other things, the Trump organization was fined $1.6 million in what they call brazen tax fraud. He's a tax cheat. We know he's a cheater. El Paso Trump supporters should write him and ask him to pay the $600,000 he owes the city of El Paso. Come on, guys. Alan Weisenberg, his former CFO, was sentenced to 5 months in jail. And they say he can get some more time. And, Rikers is supposedly a really tough place to serve, So they're going to try to flip him. A lot of other people are flipping. It doesn't matter. There's lots of flippers out there. Now, Andrew, I heard you tell, the day before yesterday, I didn't have the opportunity to ask you a question premised by my long list of witnesses who blame Trump for the Capitol's attack. Now, Andrew, I heard you tell Eric that you didn't watch all of the 1/6 congressional hearings. And with that in mind,
we're doing this again.
You read their January 6th Congressional Committee's report, 845-page report. So contrary to all those witnesses who were there and testified, where you weren't, you don't think Trump was responsible for the Capitol's attack. Now, with all the evidence of those who were there, you're seemingly uninformed, contrarian an opinion that Trump wasn't responsible for the Capitol's attack. Doesn't make you come across as a very credible reporter and news analyst. You sound like a shill, a spinner, a distractor. In short, a Trumper.
Well, and yet we still got you calling in here to, at the very least, yell at me. So what does that say about you? But okay, to the first actual point you brought up there on what is going on with the defense budget here, I would be mildly surprised if Donald Trump, the defense budget, you get me on the whole Trump train there that often this line of thought comes around to defense budget. On that part of it here, I would be kind of surprised if any actual cut ends up coming through, because that's I mean, nationally, I mean, individually from representatives, but nationally, that's quite a part that is kind of hung the hat upon by a lot of representatives, particularly in the more conservative aspects of it. So I'm going to be surprised if that comes through. It's interesting that you suggest about using it for either, the sending country, so to speak, to kind of put it in aggregate when it comes to the border security and immigration issue, or sending it directly to border security. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting proposal. I would certainly like to see both of those things addressed. I just don't know if that is going to be a direct line to be drawn, so to speak, here. And on the other part of it, on the Trump organization, I mean, yeah, there have been fine and penalties assessed here. I think the idea you're coming around to of therefore it's going to make them flip on the former president himself here, that's not quite a through line I'd draw there either. Well, as been said earlier in the program by someone else, yeah, no one is above the law, and those who have done wrong, particularly in serious or continuing situations, should be held accountable for that. Would be fine with it. One question that could come up kind of corollary to this, but not exactly what you asked, Patriot Check again over on the YouTube, asking question numero uno: has our national security been compromised by Biden taking and recklessly storing the classified documents? I mean, I feel very similarly to the way and the potential and now actual investigation going on into what was going on at Mar-a-Lago and the storage there. I mean, there's a lot of parallels here about how things were being stored by people who were not at that point in time in the office of the presidency. That's a very similar situation. So I would love to know from kind of both of these. And I would agree that investigation should be having had, because there have been any breaches, if there have been any situations caused by this, yeah, that answer needs to be known and it needs to be dealt with. So I will say to Patriot Chick and the other parts of it, I have a very similar kind of questions and want to know the actual answer to it. But on that point here, I would be amazed to know your analysis of all of those 845 pages as well here. But again, let's be honest. The major thing that was being put forth by the January 6th committee, because they didn't really have power to do anything else, was both on the character, personality, etc. of the former president, which in a political sense makes a level of sense. I mean, that was very much a lot of what the former president's political power was based on, was his persona. I mean, he has, not meant in the derisive term, but more in the technical way, a cult of personality about him. So directly going against that has, I mean, political implications. And given that's a political process, now the part that has actually been turned over is a little bit more along the lines of what I was hoping and kind of calling for since the start of an actual investigation. Because again, I keep coming back to this as much as you do, I suppose, that if you're saying that he did all of these bad things and therefore should be held accountable, and again, accountability and responsibility, legal responsibility, that is, are two separate concerns here. Frankly, should the president be held accountable for what he said? Probably. That's almost, I mean, a given, because if you think that, not a lot of people out there saying, you know what, January 6th was a great thing. There's a lot of people out there with some, let's just call them different perspectives on who did what and when. And that's why I have been very much in favor of a full investigation and, again, legal repercussions, which, by the way, the thing that you've brought up there about people who have been prosecuted about it, notably not done by the January 6th committee. They were done by the recommendations coming out of it. So, okay, there has been some ability, but whenever we're talking about high level like this, again, the answer at least I have gotten for the most part in the reporting career that I have done. I don't do as much reporting these days as we're doing like these discussions and talk shows, and they're not quite congruent. I would call what I did this past Sunday, going out and covering and the news conference of the presidential arrival, more reporting than I've done in a while, because they are different capacities here. But getting to the news analysis part of it here, again, the idea of culpability, legal culpability, I'm going to make distinct and separate from the idea of there being, well, potentially repercussions or the various responsibility that should be claimed. Now, do I expect the former president to do it? He is famously not someone to say sorry or I'm wrong. So I'm not going to hold my breath on that part of it. But on the other side of what should actually happen therein, again, the questions, the way it's been put forth by the committee, and if you're going to say, well, you haven't seen every absolute second of it, and therefore you can't comment on it, okay, tell me where I'm wrong or give me the specific site source for where I'm wrong in this analysis of it. Would love to hear this part, that the January 6th committee itself, in its progress, the consequences it could impose were contempt of Congress or potentially moving towards impeachment of those that were responsible for it, notably didn't exactly do much or any of that of congressional members themselves. And of course, that was a moot point when it comes to the former president, as by the time this whole committee really got spun up, was the former president, meaning that impeachment is literally not applicable. So, inasmuch as the committee has very much been in the public mind and putting forth all its points here, the consequences it could impose are limited at best, particularly since they didn't actually end up subpoenaing the president, actually doing an interview of him. I mean, that's where the whole contempt of Congress could come about, as was seen with, like, say, Steve Bannon and others. Given that, again, just the way this is not the way I would have gone about this unless you were looking for, in the public court of public opinion or political consequences, is putting this to the investigation. Because truly, really, if you believe that there is legal liability, criminal charges that should come up here, wouldn't you want to make sure that that goes through as much and as completely as possible? Wouldn't that be your sum total goal? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Absolutely. Again, the commission's job, and we all know that they're not prosecutors. We know that they can't put somebody in jail. Everybody knows that, Andrew. You're not telling everybody something new by going on and on about that. Their job was to document, to get all the evidence they could about what happened, before, during, and after. That's what they did. And they put together an awesome report, awesome hearings, 1,200 witnesses, 1 million documents. I saw the witnesses. I saw the tweets. I saw the emails. I saw the text messages. It's clear to anybody who's an objective observer that Trump was responsible. And it's going to the courts. What they did do is they issued 4 criminal referrals of Trump to the Department of Justice, which has appointed a special prosecutor, counsel, who is going to oversee Trump's role in the attack on the Capitol and his role in the pilfering of government documents to maggot loco.
Okay, those are two separate things here. Let's make that very clear here, because the January 6th committee wasn't touching on that subject. It has been, of course, subject to its now own, special process coming through directly through the Department of Justice here, but that is separate from what the January 6th committee was looking at. You may want to combine them together because you very much do not like the personage of the former president, which is, of course, your prerogative. You don't have to like anyone here, but if you're just rabid for their downfall and don't really care how about we get there, the short-sightedness that comes along with that here, let's just string them up, that kind of logic that comes along with it, as opposed to like, okay, what are actually our laws, the way they should be gone through. Again, there should responsibility had, should they probably face consequences like from his own party for things that were said and done or actions not taken? At the very least, should individuals maybe take a long, hard look at them? Yeah, probably. I mean, that's how I evaluate all of my political choices. Is not, do I like the guy? Do I want to have a beer with him? There's plenty of politicians that I'd want to have a beer with that I would never want to see in elected office, because that's just how this works. And the people who I think might be boring and bored me to tears might be the best ones to hold in office. That's how I actually evaluate these guys. But if you want the guy to go away forever, you're actually getting there is a different process than just calling it out here. But to the point about what can actually happen to him here, again, that if you want there or think that there should be actual legal consequences, therefore, in my mind, the actual investigation, the one that would lead to that, should have come first in my mind here. So thank you for the point in the call. It's what it's worth, even if it made me end up breaking my promise about not going on forever, because we are well due for that first break, over beyond due for that first break of this hour right now. You are, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more calls, more comments, a lot of stuff been going on back here in the background, but we'll get to that and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Again, that number to call, that fills up pretty quick, but keep it in mind, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Reynolds, a stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder. On Dyer, north of Fred Wilson at McConnell, police still working an accident with injuries there. Mesa northbound is slow from the downtown exits to East Red with a 10-minute delay. And Montana Avenue eastbound from Hawkins out to Zaragoza is a 12-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Winning $1,000 incites all kinds of emotions.
Are you kidding? No way.
What to do with it is up to you.
We're going to Key West, that's it. What are you, nuts? We're going to Atlantic City.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Enter the nationwide keyword at ktsmradio.com for your chance to win. Brought to you by Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, where buying a car is fun.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
I never write reviews, but Navage is so amazing, I had to leave one. Nothing's ever cleared out my sinuses as well. I'm blown away by how Navage works. That's a review from Carrie, and it's one of over 100,000 online testimonials praising Navage. I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I've talked about flushing out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, how Navage's powered suction can help you breathe better, and how your nose is the body's air filter, and Navage will clean it out. But don't take my word for it. What do people like Chad say, who wrote, Navage has helped clear out my nasal passages every single night. My wife says my snoring has gone way down. Snorefest be gone, unquote. Navage is the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million customers to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hey Texas, did you know that individuals living with serious mental illness are more susceptible to severe COVID-19? Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov for vaccination resources to help reduce the risk and keep yourself and your fellow Texans informed and protected this holiday season. Stay healthy, Texas.
Life can take a turn for anyone, and if it has for you, remember that there's so much for you to turn to. We all need supportive people and healthy outlets in our lives, so we don't have to face hard times alone. Visit turntosupportstx.org for the help that's right for you.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, and it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to goodrx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, but then also we got, of course, other Facebook pages, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. So any of those places that work for you here, look for us either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And yeah, it's the end of the week. It's Friday, so we're doing that whole free-for-all Friday thing. And what that means is that we're taking those comments and calls throughout both hours of the show here. So if you want to add your 2 cents, okay, phone lines are going to be pretty well throughout both hours. I'd be surprised if they aren't, just because that's how that works. But keep that number in mind if you want to try to squeeze in, particularly at the end of a previous call. Just as a little tip there for you, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And okay, and we also take the comments coming in. So I did have a comment or a message sent to me on one of those social pages. So didn't ask the individual if I could read their full comment on there, but the question is a pretty good one to look into. So essentially being asked, going to refer to them as a PS here, PS asking that when the president visited, seems that magically the flood of people crossing over was turned off for his visit. Who is it with their hand on the spigot? Who/why was it left open for a previous year/years? I think is what he intended to say there, the individual commenting. But so that actually is an interesting enough question on its own here. I think the idea of it magically being turned off, I mean, there's a few suppositions in there, but of course we had seen in the weeks prior to, let's call it within more or less a month away, a high water mark definitely be set in our area right before that with according to the numbers, you can see El Paso, Texas.gov/migrant-crisis, the migrant situational awareness dashboard put forth by the city of El Paso, encapsulating a lot of different data coming from many different parts of the region and some of the agencies and organizations involved in it. We did hit that high watermark of 10,349 community releases in that second to the 50th week of the year, however you want to call that. So, yeah, and again, with the then president having been here in the last week, let's call that within a month here of it going down to within that last calendar week about 1,714. So to say it was turned off entirely would not be accurate in its own. A significant decrease. At this point, it's pretty close to an exponential decrease down from that point here, just looking at the kind of reverse exponential graph we're seeing there. So clearly something has changed. Wouldn't fault you for seeing that and using the phrases that was used by the messenger in this case. PS is who I'm referring to them as. But what I'm going to say here about that is that there's a lot more going into it than someone saying, all right, you can go across, or oh, no, you can't. Because we got, again, marketing essentially from the cartels to deal with, individual conceptions of the people that may be wanting to attempt a crossing to consider here what the legal ramifications are. So a couple of things that were happening immediately after that week, because you got to remember that week was the lead up to, and I believe including December 21st, which had been the kind of red letter day that was expected for the end of Title 42. And that was really an impetus for a lot of potential crossings, or at least those that were wanting to be in position to attempt to do that crossing, because that was when, with Title 42 ending, no longer being able to do the immediate expulsions based on the pandemic era policies that are encapsulated within it, made it seem like this might be the time to a lot of them there. And again, I'm positive the marketing by the cartels, coyotes, etc., was put out as, no, that's the day. So you want to make sure you get in line with us now, and we might have some surge pricing. Like, I don't know exactly, but I can imagine that an evil Uber model might be getting applied by those types of individuals and organizations. So point is that those conceptions, that was the height of what was going on there. And then, of course, what else did we see going on in the meantime? We saw the disaster declaration put in place by the city of El Paso. We saw Operation Lone Star now begin operating in the region, essentially the state level assistance, in which, on a related note, new email out from the Governor Abbott's press office on that, saying Operation Lone Star expands in West Texas as President Biden ignores crisis. Not exactly the most generous title for a release, but again, this is coming out straight from the governor's office, so wasn't expecting it to be totally impartial. Noting it specifically about how much enforcement is happening in this region and parts like that. And again, a lot of rhetoric coming out from the governor's office. Nothing too surprising there, I will say. But we did see those level efforts. What we saw in the kind of soft actual banks of the river, as opposed to the concreted in ones, where there was, again, the Texas National Guard troops, and among other things, and the placing of the connexes, the barbed wire. So there was a lot of things that were changing in the lead up to the president's visit, including, of course, what was then going on the streets of El Paso with those increased enforcement actions outside of the quote unquote sensitive areas. So yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts on it, but I could see where you come across with the idea of a notable decrease in encounters. The encounters, the in custody numbers have all seen the same kind of precipitous, if not to zero, drops, which is another reason that why there's other reporting going on in our region, that there's a lot of anticipation coming forth of what might happen next. We got February now, kind of not exactly a red letter underlined kind of day, but a potential major change of one with oral arguments before the Supreme Court. Now, whether that makes a expedited actual decision coming out of it, not sure about that part of it. But if you're going to expect there to be maybe more impetus, more discussion, more things ramping up in regions around us, yeah, I see the potential there as well. So that's a kind of very long part analysis of that question. So I think it's a pretty good one. So I hope that answers at least part of it here. Try to send you that clip of it as well, as that question did come in over our social media. So, okay, that's a long question I wanted to answer, but let's get to at least one more call before we hit that next segment. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to be brief.
Fair enough.
The immigration system is broken. That's a common refrain I hear all the time from these Democratic politicians. Well, Andrew, the immigration system is not broken. It's a system of enforcement that is broken down.
Okay, see what you're saying there. I mean, there's certainly aspects of that, like certain things that have been further pointed out, not even just by like politicians or individuals involved in the immigration or response to its system, such as in the nonprofit community, like our interview yesterday, is just in the simple factor of our facilities and how they are set up are not really workable for the way the situation is now. I mean, the way that, even immigration holding cells, so to speak, were set up was for essentially people trying to make their way across the border with as little to no interaction with law enforcement or authorities as possible, and tending to be, working age adults, if not males predominantly. So the holding cells in those cases end up being pretty severe, pretty much all right, temporary holding thing till we then move you into a more permanent situation, such as, going straight into deportation proceedings, that kind of thing. But the situations we're dealing with now are, of course, markedly different, with, asylum being a major part of the process now. And so the other aspects that come along with it make that, and the fact that we got, whole family units, groups, and things like that, making it, and the overwhelming nature of it on its own, the fact that the amount of actual, physical holding cells is just not sufficient, particularly in situations like now, all this compounds to, I would definitely say that part of it is 100% insufficient for the situation we're in now.
Yes, but one also has to ask, okay, I'm sure there's a lot of single individuals downtown that are undocumented, okay, and they said that they fear Border Patrol more than anything else. So why are these people not being picked up and processed? That's one of the biggest questions I have.
I mean, essentially, that's kind of part of what we were seeing. The whole question and kerfuffle over what was going on, the quote-unquote sanitization that was being talked about as being seen kind of around the visits that happened, that was being put forth by both officials in, Department of Homeland Security agencies, CBP, and Border Patrol, etc., as being part of their enforcement actions. I mean, there's been video that's been out on social media from some of our other local news gathering organizations of individuals being asked by, it wasn't clear which exact organization was doing this action, because all that you could see on the back of the vest was saying police. Now that would maybe lead you to believe it was like local police, but that can be a vest worn by a variety of different agencies, so that doesn't on its own make it clear. But they were, say, for instance, asking an individual really after particularly the jailbreak that happened in Juarez, they were asking the individual to remove his shirt, very clearly looking for like tattoos or specific markings on that person, indicating like, gang allegiances. So there definitely have been other enforcement actions, and then further ones even being done by federal officials as well on our streets. Just not around the question was about like what quote unquote those sensitive areas like near churches, etc.
Yeah, understood. Well, anyway, moving on. Biden said it was irresponsible of Trump the way he handled these documents, and the news media was constantly pounding in that that the government was concerned that these documents were not in a secure area. Well, if that was the case, then how come the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago and they had a locksmith with them? And then now we have Biden with sensitive documents, top secret documents, on in his garage. Well, yeah, I'm sure his Corvette is secured in a locked garage. My BMW is in a locked garage, but I don't leave important documents, bank statements, et cetera, just lying around in my garage.
And if you don't have one of those classified or unclassified stickers on your car there, I'd be very disappointed in you as well.
Yeah. Anyway, and I was going to respond to Secret Squirrel out of Messia, aka Messia Frankie. You have what's known as possession. Possession is defined under the law as care, custody, control, and management. Well, if those documents are in your garage or any part of your house that you have control of, well, you've got control of that. And for Secret Squirrel to say in no way does it compare to what Trump did, well, one document can get you busted as easily as 10.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to put it here. The only thing I can speak of directly from my personal experience was, again, I never was supposed to, and thankfully never did, handle truly classified things, because something would have gone royally wrong if that was the case here. But I was handling what's called PMI, or a PPI, personally identifiable information, PII. The names have changed a couple of times. And so it was sensitive, if not technically classified. I mean, some was public information, but some would be stuff that could be, again, identifying someone. So their names, addresses, birth dates, etc. So again, not going to call it state secrets, but still problematic if getting into the wrong hands. And so the standards I was under at those point in times was at least 2 locks, either within the the exterior of the house and on the doors, and then another one that it was locked in. So again, different standards, but same kind of logic being applied there of, there has to be care and concern and can't be willy-nilly, which is, again, why I fully support kind of in both of these situations, there being full investigations, even if I understand where you're coming from about some questions about how the process is being gone through so far.
Yes. Well, I can tell you from my experience, I didn't handle classified or secret information, but it was strictly confidential under Texas and federal law. And we could never take files home. They had to be secured in cabinets at the end of the day, the doors locked. And if they caught you violating that, I mean, you could be terminated right there. But anyway, next thing you're going to hear from the Democrats, and if they haven't already put it out, that these documents were planted in Joe Biden's garage by the Russians.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one floated yet, but I guess I won't be surprised if that ends up coming up. Again, this comes down to, okay, let's find the facts. Let's get beyond, innuendo and speculation and, have an investigation. So I think the steps so far of appointing one is probably the correct thing, and why some of those concepts, such as independence of the, Justice Department are important. We'll see what actually comes. I think that the whole wrinkle of there being a difference can change in control of the House, because one of the more underrated powers of the House is subpoena power. So we'll see how that particularly works out. I know that some talking about, criminal consequences. I got to say this, that I doubt that anything criminally would come out actually during this administration, because the way that process is set up is that if there are, high crimes and misdemeanors by an elected official, particularly at that level, an impeachment would be the correct process to go through if it's believed that it has occurred in such a way. Whether it occurred during or not during the office is another question, but we've already had several assurances from those, national politicos that they would be wanting to pursue this anyway. Be interesting if they end up taking that route based on this issue.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm all for investigating both matters. But anyway, there was an interview of a Democratic congressman. I wish I had written his name down, but the interview was done by MSNBC. And he said those documents could have been planted in Biden's house. But anyway, have a good weekend. I turn the mic back over to you.
All right, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Very well.
All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, more comments going on, more calls coming in, and we'll keep getting to those here. So stay tuned, more Talk El Paso after this break. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hey everyone, this is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. All northbound lanes of US 54 were closed for several hours today following a deadly crash. It happened this afternoon near Fred Wilson. Details were limited, but police say that at least one person was killed in the wreck. A dog that was tied to a wrought iron window guard is now helping comfort children in El Paso who have to testify in court. Buddy was rescued by animal protection officers after posts on social media were made about a dog that was cruelly confined in a yard in northeast El Paso. That was back on January 19th. Laws and Paws Animal Rescue took the dog in and was adopted. The dog went through training to become a certified therapy dog and now works at the DA's office as a victim's assistant therapy companion. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso police responding to an injury accident. I-10 eastbound at the Copia Street exit. I-10 eastbound is slow from Wyoming downtown exits to Trowbridge with 10-minute delays. On the 54 Patriot northbound Altura to Fred Wilson, it's a 10-minute delay. Stop and go traffic there. Montana Avenue slow eastbound from Hawkins out to Zaragoza with 14-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather change is coming our way. Lows tonight dropping down into the 30s, so a cold start for your Saturday morning. Mild tomorrow afternoon, upper 60s to around 70 degrees. Breezy conditions with lots of clouds for our Sunday. High wind watch already issued by the National Weather Service. Slight chance of a shower with the windy conditions on Sunday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples helps you start the new year off right with big savings on everything you need for your business. Now, Staples Reward members get $30 back in a Staples Store bonus when they spend $100. Rewards members only. Store bonus redeemable in store only. Offer ends 1/21. Save big at Staples.
Attention! If you have a current insurance plan, you are eligible to receive up to 8 COVID-19 tests shipped to your home or business each month, absolutely free. Per the current government mandate, U.S.-based insurers are now required to cover at-home COVID testing kits every month with no out-of-pocket fees to you. Just visit getyourfreetest.com to begin the registration process. When completed, Tiero Health, a trusted source for next-generation healthcare, will submit a claim to your insurance provider. Your 8 monthly tests will ship directly to your home or business for free. Go to getyourfreetest.com. There's no deductible and no copay. COVID-19 and its variants are still here, so give yourself peace of mind by registering you and your family for free time-sensitive tests today. Visit getyourfreetest.com to register from the comfort of your own home. That's getyourfreetest.com to receive 8 COVID-19 tests shipped to you at no cost. Just visit getyourfreetest.com.
Cash Blitz scratch tickets from the Texas Lottery are here. Play for a shot at top prizes from $5,000 to $1 million. Plus, enter to win a VIP iHeart trip and more at texaslottery.com.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact, particularly since it's Friday, Free for All Friday. That's what we usually call it. Yeah, we were doing the Throwdown Thursday thing for a minute towards the end of the year when we were out of the office for those Fridays, but back on the schedule now. Definitely doing the Friday things for the near foreseeable future. I mean, we start running out of holidays that do that kind of thing, at least for a while now. So yeah, we'll be doing this. Don't worry, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. as we usually do. There'll be a lot of people chiming in, actually dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate. Ion Graham, Austin Redfern, Richard Janisic, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner. Robbie Flores specifically noting it's National Rubber Duck Day. So a little bit extra few quacks going on out there in the comment, I guess. Some interesting other ones going on, including Edgar Ortiz talking about immigration enforcement has been relaxed in and around churches and schools for decades. Again, those quote-unquote sensitive zones, or at least the consideration towards them here. And some other comments going on there. So if you want to add your 2 cents, we pop them up, even if I don't necessarily read them, like if we're in a call, if they are, relevant, we will definitely get to them here. But yeah, so if you want to add it over there, again, the phone line's open. If full up, probably going to be for a while, because that's how Fridays work. 915-544-5876. for KTSM. Let's get to more of the calls on the line here. We do have Ronaldo on the west side with us here right now. Ronaldo, thanks for joining us. Hey there, Ronaldo. Ronaldo, you there?
Yeah, I just had a couple of points.
Sure.
But one is on the January 6th hearing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that anyone would think that that's justice. The man had no defense. He was not allowed to present witnesses, evidence, or the committee was selected with people that decided he was guilty already. So, I mean, they need to just forget about that. The other thing is on the classified information that's being ignored is who's in charge of controlling the classified material out of the White House. No one knows where that information has been, who has seen it. Normally, when you like top secret, in the normal channels, everyone that reads that top secret document has to sign when they saw it and their name. So this has been floating around. There's no telling who saw it. So that's where they need to start. Who's responsible for running the program? They should be accountable.
I kind of would say that's I haven't really talked about this, but this has been a thought in my background, in the back of my mind, that given that, again, that this is kind of closer to my personal experience, I've had to be adjacent to investigations where someone was essentially saying they mishandled material, and they are not simple. So kind of outside of the whole national political furor that has erupted over both of these sets of incidents here, it's been kind of my, again, back of the mind assumption that, yeah, there are going to be some heads rolling for a few people. Of anyone who may have been in the chain of custody of those documents probably should be making sure that their resume is updated and or they're comfortable with maybe serving some time, because, yeah, I think that's probably going to happen. I don't know if that'll actually be like brought up fully, if this will be known by, like, say, you or me, but yeah, I have a full expectation, yeah, that will probably be happening along with this. Gotta say.
All right. Okay. Thanks very much for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the point of the call. You have a good one there.
Okay, bye.
I mean, yes, because it is not a laughing matter to say, oh, well, some confidential information or top secret or eyes only or TSSCI, any of that got spilled anywhere. Heck, okay. I don't think I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I've had reason to know about situations where someone put something on the wrong level of classified network and it caused a whole S-storm of things going on. Like, that's how serious this is. Like, still, it was still a level of classification, but not the right one, just to give you some perspective there. So, yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, I'm assuming it just hadn't come up that much that year. There are going to be some heads rolling, and anywhere that people are going to be fleeing to be anywhere near associated with these situations, I gotta say, is probably some of the back end drama that is essentially happening right now. At least one other thing going on here, and the first part of it there on the January 6th committee. I mean, again, I still think that it was a tactical blunder, essentially. I mean, there was the whole boycott and not willing to be appointed to the committee by national Republicans as a whole. Yes, there were the examples, Liz Cheney, etc., but she had notably broken from them by then. So I'm not going to call that a participation by national Republicans at that point in time by not being able to even interject their 2 cents into the whole process. And I think that would have been maybe an answer, kind of, sort of, not really, to the whole question of how it was presented. But I mean, there's no question that this was not a, judicial legal process. It's literally the wrong branch of government. And so that's what may come out of what is now being investigated after the criminal recommendations have been made. We won't see the results of that process until, like, charges are actually coming out, indictments, etc., which is kind of closer to what I was calling for the entire time here. So tell you what, we got to take that next break right now, get back on track, get for the top of the hour. So see if we can come back quickly after this break and tell you we got, squeeze in what we can, but definitely be back after the top of the hour. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an injury accident Gateway South at Pershing Drive causing slowing. Police and medical on the scene of an injury accident downtown I-10 eastbound at the Copia Street exit. 54 northbound is still stop and go from Altura to Fred Wilson with 15-minute delays. And I-10 eastbound Cotton to Geronimo downtown is slow with 11-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples helps you start the new year off right with big savings on everything you need for your business. Now, Staples Reward members get $30 back in a Staples Store bonus when they spend $100. Rewards members only. Store bonus redeemable in store only. Offer ends 1/21. Save big at Staples.
This is the Piketon Massacre. Return to Pike County.
New details into what was uncovered at the gruesome crime scenes in Pike County.
Accused murderer George Wagner faces a judge and jury.
No Wagner family DNA was found at a crime scene.
Will he face the death penalty or will he walk free?
This case is about to blow wide open.
Listen to the Piketon Massacre Season 4. Trials begin on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
I've had COVID.
Me too.
But I didn't know you could get it again.
What? And if you're 50 or older?
Or have a chronic condition like heart disease or diabetes.
Getting COVID again could get really serious, even deadly. That's why getting an updated COVID vaccine is so important.
COVID isn't going away anytime soon, but I can lower my risk.
And I'm up for that.
We can do this. Find updated COVID vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hey, Texas, did you know that individuals living with serious mental illness are more susceptible to severe COVID-19? Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov for vaccination resources to help reduce the risk and keep yourself and your fellow Texans informed and protected this holiday season. Stay healthy, Texas.
Paid for by government.com.
Did you hear? A recent stash of $10 gold Liberty coins from the 1800s has been found. These gorgeous gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck in the late 1800s, and less than 50 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this gold find an incredible opportunity. Call 1-800-456-2466, and you are guaranteed a $10 gold Liberty coin minted by the U.S. Mint in the 1800s. But with extremely limited availability, you must call now. These gold Liberty coins from the 1800s are still in uncirculated condition. That is history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-456-2466. Call now, and you'll receive a free American Coin Collector's Bonus Package, a $40 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-456-2466 now to secure your $10 gold Liberty coins dated from the 1800s before they sell out. That's 1-800-456-2466.
Cybercrime is getting more sophisticated by the week, which is bad news for your business. Stay one step ahead of them with Good Hacker IT Solutions. You'll enjoy 24/7 computer and network monitoring with remote help desk services too. Connect unlimited computers and servers easily. Sign up for a subscription plan with no contract. You can cancel whenever. To get a quote, send a message at goodhackersolutions.com. That's goodhackersolutions.com. Defend your business from bad hackers with Good Hacker IT Solutions.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
There are things that go together that make mornings better. Coffee and cream, bacon and eggs, pancakes and syrup.
Let's take a look at traffic and weather together.
Traffic and weather. Yeah. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio. Updates all day long.
General things like that help me get through my day.
Before you head out, get together with our traffic and weather. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude.
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Cool. Who's asking? I am. Look, you know the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids at night. Perfect. I love my job. Oak Tree?
What's up?
Still in the same place I left you last year. That's what I like. Consistency.
Well, it's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple hundred years.
I know. I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. You'd think he would have learned by now to leave the night before our meetings. Okay. Squirrel. Has anybody seen Mr. Squirrel?
The forest has been preparing just for you. Visit a forest near you today. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank
to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The House Judiciary Committee will look into President Biden's potential mishandling of classified documents from his time as vice president. Fox News reports Committee Chair Jim Jordan will also conduct oversight into the Justice Department's review of the matter, including the appointment of special counsel Robert Hur. Jordan said in a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland, the appointment of Hur raises fundamental oversight questions. Many folks are looking to become a billionaire tonight. The Mega Millions jackpot has surged to $1.35 billion for tonight's drawing. It's the second largest top prize in Mega Millions history, with many hoping to get really lucky on this Friday the 13th. The odds of winning are 1 in 302 million. A human error is to blame for the FAA system failure that grounded thousands of flights across the nation earlier this week. Lisa Taylor reports.
Officials with the FAA believe the major outage was caused by someone who didn't follow proper procedure while accessing the notice-to-air mission system on Wednesday. The error damaged a data file within the over 30-year-old computer system.
Former President Trump's request to dismiss a defamation lawsuit has been rejected by a federal judge. The lawsuit was filed by writer E. Jean Carroll and accuses Trump of defamation for denying raping her in the 1990s. Wall Street is closing higher to cap a positive week. Liz Warner has more.
Stocks rallied as JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citi all beat earnings expectations. Although fourth quarter revenue topped estimates for the big banks, recession fears continue to weigh on markets. At the closing bell today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 112 points, the S&P 500 climbed 16 points, and the Nasdaq gained 78 points. I'm Liz Warner.
The U.S. will continue to aid Ukraine in its defense against Russia up to and beyond the one-year mark of the invasion. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Hurricane hunters are in California to study all these atmospheric rivers.
4 planes used to survey weather will spend about 2 months flying into the storms. Satellites can't always see them, and high clouds can obscure the view. Even when an atmospheric river is spotted, experts say predicting where it will make landfall is hard. Some forecasts can be off by 200 to 300 miles. That's why the Air Force crew is collecting aerial data to help change that. I'm Michael Kastner.
Residents living in and around Florida's Space Coast could hear a sonic boom during a scheduled launch this weekend. A SpaceX rocket carrying satellites and other equipment for the U.S. Space Force is expected to take off tomorrow at the Kennedy Space Center. Those in the area should hear 2 sonic booms after liftoff as the rocket's boosters return to the launch pad. If everything goes as planned, the launch should take off around 5 p.m. on Saturday. Another dead whale has washed up on the Jersey Shore as calls continue for the federal government to pause offshore wind development. Kristen Marks reports.
The body of a humpback whale was found Friday morning on a beach in Brigantine, raising the number of dead whales that have washed ashore on beaches in New York and New Jersey to 7. Other areas include Atlantic City, Keensburg, and Rockaway Beach in Queens. Earlier this week, environmental groups wrote to President Biden asking that offshore wind projects be paused while an investigation is done into whether they're a factor in harm to marine life.
The founding members of the Grateful Dead are headlining this year's Jazz Fest in New Orleans. Dead and Company, which includes John Mayer, will be joined by Ed Sheeran, Lizzo, and Santana. New Orleans native and Grammy winner Jon Batiste is also on the main stage. The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival will take place the last weekend of April and the first weekend of May. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Credit. That's credit. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
The Good Feet Store, improving people's lives 2 feet at a time.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all. iHeartRadio. Access to all of your favorite radio stations.
It's Ryan Seacrest. I go by the name of Charlamagne the God.
Hi, I'm Ellen K.
Bobby Bones here.
Hola, soy Enrique Santos. Access to all of the best free curated playlists.
My favorite music. The best songs.
A little bit of everything.
Access to all of the great podcasts for every interest.
The Stuff You Should Know podcast.
The Daily Show podcast. The Herd with Colin Cowherd. And best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Online classes for adults age 50 and up start on February 6th in the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the University of Texas, El Paso. Registration runs through January 27th. Topics include art, history, literature, music, fitness, and more. Visit utep.edu/OLLI or call 915-747-6280.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. There's a lot, so many comments coming in. It's almost hard to keep track of them sometimes here, but those dropping those likes and reacts over on our social media pages that we do appreciate, including Carlos Marquez, Ion Grimm, Austin Redfern, Richard Genesee, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, Angel Rueda, and more. A lot of comments coming in as well, and including Angel saying that my comment from yesterday referencing Clinton was out of context. What I could have said was that, quote, every year federal employees are prosecuted for mishandling classified information. Many top-tier employees do not suffer consequences. Secretary of State Clinton and 4-star General Petraeus come to mind. You guys might remember others. So I think that's kind of what I was getting at yesterday as well, maybe from a different way, about how when we're talking about the people boots on the ground, so to speak, whenever it comes to handling intelligence, yeah, there's certainly books that get thrown at that point, but I think there's also a distinct difference, and something I've never had experience with is the difference between those kind of technically working information, that need technical access to something to perform a specific job, as opposed to decision maker access, lawmakers, heads of departments, those kind of things, where the exact aspects might be a little bit more occluded and different. I think that also kind of goes to another question brought up by Patriot Chick over on the YouTube. Why didn't anyone take notice that these documents were missing for 6 years? Is that, well, it's a little bit more of a complicated question. It's not exactly a library system. I mean, there are very stringent guidelines in line that I have been mildly privy to. Again, never had to check anything out or be exposed to anything myself, because things would have gone very, very wrong if that was the case. But it's not like someone took something out of a file and then someone coming looking at the file later was like, hey, this paper is missing. I mean, sometimes, yes, there are specific documents that are like originals and can't be copied, but and a lot of this stuff is electronic these days and go on these secured networks. So it's almost like closer to, I accidentally CC'd someone that I didn't intend to kind of thing. I'm not saying that this is on the same thing as a, BCC all of the entire company kind of error, which is, that definitely happened in my experience here. And the real, okay, if that ever happens to you, don't be then the person that CCs everyone else again saying, hey, stop sending emails. You're just adding to the problem. Sorry, personal frustration that has happened at least a couple of times in my life here. That's a problem with being part of giant companies sometimes, that whenever one of those mishaps happens, they go nuclear. But the point is that, yeah, it's not simply hey, this thing is missing. We don't have the book back on the shelf. It's not a library system. So I'm sure it's way, way, way more complicated than that, but I'm pretty sure about that aspect of it. So, I mean, I'm sure there were some balls dropped along the way. Make no mistake, but also might not be quite that simple. But let's go ahead and get back to the phone lines here right now, because of course that's what we're doing Friday. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. James Holmes also adding that like. I saw that there. Don't think I missed that. But getting back to the phone lines here, we do have Eric on the east side with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Yes. As a philosopher who specializes in understanding ethics and epistemology, I'm repeatedly horrified when I hear Christian conservatives talk about moral relativism, because it shows how arbitrary and immoral their ethics are. Like, for example, one of the 10 commandments is thou shalt not bear false witness. And Christian conservatives, especially on conservative talk radio, they literally get paid to lie and deceive. I was listening to what Raul had said, his call.
Sure.
And, you say you want Trump to be held accountable for what he said, as if you're completely uninformed about the state elector plot that he was running behind the scenes and fighting in the courts to overthrow the government and overturn the elections. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of that, but also let's make it clear, not what was being discussed at that point in time. So if you're saying, oh, you were talking about bowling, why weren't you talking about tennis? Like, okay, we can talk about that, but don't act like we're trying to obfuscate anything here. We were talking about January 6th. That was the topic at hand. So yeah, we were talking about the things going on with that specific occurrence and the investigation, the committees, etc., into it here. So if you want to talk about that, let's talk about that then.
Yeah, the state elector plot was part of Trump's coup attempt. The right-wing terrorists who attacked the Capitol that day were there to prevent the counting of state electors. Trump had fraudulent, fake state electors that he was trying to replace the legitimate ones through multiple means. That's what the January 6th committee showed us, which you are not familiar with, apparently.
Okay, literally just said I was familiar with it, so if you're just going to ignore what I'm saying, we're not actually talking here. But if you want to talk about that part of it, the idea of slates of other electors, you're entitled to your opinion on these here, even if I'm not going to agree with the adjectives that you're using here about how this was being put forth. Yeah, the former president was very much possessed of the idea of the outcome of the election not being in his favor, not being incorrect, and was therefore basically going to the idea of states being able to select their electors, putting that forth and trying to do these other things that have been described alternately by some as end runs around or attempting to do what he thought was right. Again, this is one of those things that would, I guess, go to the level of investigation, but ultimately did end up failing. Now, if you're trying to connect that directly with January 6th, I'm not quite sure I buy that. I mean, there were a lot of things, including like other investigations coming out of Georgia into exact actions by the former president that I think probably should be looked into a little bit more, and should be probably, I mean, it is the source of its own actual investigation. Again, let me draw that distinction here, because it looking into and actually doing it, you're not hearing a lot of rhetoric about it, not a lot of stuff put out publicly, because they're actually trying to dig into things, and we will find out. Now, is it as satisfying as putting it in front of, cameras and, blasting it out nationally? No, but is it going to be potentially more substantive in what could actually come out of it? Yeah. And so let me make it also clear, in case you're still not listening to me, the idea of between, essentially should he be held, responsible, difference between legally and non-legally, like, again, the legal consequences that would come out of the actual investigation I have been calling for. But if you want to say that, outside of that, should people maybe change their thinking, take action in their own private lives, or think about it that way, that would be kind of a different conversation. That's something that really everyone has to make for themselves, depending on what they actually have learned and read about it there. Does that make sense?
70% of those hearings were about the state elector plot. Like when two of Trump's attorney generals, Rudy Giuliani, and two of Trump's campaign managers testified under oath about this state elector plot that Trump used, that they said was illegal, and that there were completely baseless, based off of. They testified this under oath, Polk, and 70% of these hearings were about the state elector plot. You're refusing to acknowledge the coup attempt that right-wing media is covering up, including yourself.
Okay, if I'm covering up, I don't know where you get. We have talked about this issue at length and repeatedly, even when it hasn't been on a Friday here. So you're trying to say we're covering it up. If you don't like the realities of what I'm talking about here, you can just say that. But you're trying to say, no, you're wrong and you're actually bad for talking about it the way that I don't like. That's a separate conversation. I mean, literally, you've accused me of this numerous times here. And no, I'm not going to try to pull out time codes for you because this is pretty much self-evident. Of the conclusions that I have put forth about the outcomes of the January 6th committee, which you seem to continually be taking issue with, where am I wrong about what the actual legal consequences could be for the January 6th committee? Where am I wrong? Anywhere.
Yeah, people are committing terrorism in the name of these election fraud lies. There's a lot more that matters than just holding Trump accountable, which may never even happen. But we know for a fact that he tried to overturn the elections based on those hearings that you refuse to acknowledge. You lied.
Okay. Again, if you're not even going to listen to me, I don't even know why we're doing this phone call here. You can keep spewing the labels that you love doing over in the comments here. But, okay, let's just set this forth right now. If you actually want to talk to me, like get back and forth, not just wait for me to finish talking and then continue on with whatever thought you had before. That's just a bad conversation. But more than that, that's not what we do here. These idea of speeches back and forth. Well, this is why this is not meant to be a town hall style debate. This is meant to be a discussion about what is important here. So, you think January 6th is important? Good, fine. We can talk about that, but you're not talking to me. You're talking at me and at our audience and using this trying to be a bully pulpit kind of situation. And that's not what this is about. So again, I'll give you one more chance here. Actually answer the question I just put forth directly to you about what in the analysis I have of the actual consequences from the January 6th committee do you feel I am incorrect about?
Numerous people have already been held criminally accountable in the courts because of these investigations. So that proved Trump tried to overturn the elections. Which people commit terrorism because they believe.
Okay, you're getting closer to it. Get one more chance here because I think you're at least trying. Of the actual consequences for Donald Trump out of the January 6th committee itself here. Yes, there have been other criminal recommendations getting closer to the idea of the investigation I've been calling for consistently this whole time. But out of the actual January 6th committee, where do you feel I am wrong in my analysis of the consequences that could happen for the former president?
The testimonies that were the investigation revealed are being sent to the DOJ as part of their investigation, which the special counsel, which is going to find him guilty because we see the proof. We see the proof ourselves that the DOJ now has access to. This wasn't a political investigation. This was a legitimate investigation into whether Trump tried to overturn the election.
Okay, I'm going to answer this question for you here since I've given you 3 chances in this one phone call alone to say it. There is not, in the analysis that I'm putting forth about what the actual consequences coming out of the January 6th committees are. I have fully acknowledged that there have been the criminal recommendations, but if you don't want to admit you're wrong, I don't know what to do for you there. But if you just want to say that the people who disagree with you are just wrong and there's nothing to be done about that, if you want to talk about the issues, do it. Let's do it. But if you just want to harp on a point here and make everyone, it's not discussion, it's capitulation that you're seeking of, no, you have to agree with me or you're always going to be wrong, bad, other labels here. Again, if it comes down to you suck kind of comments here as the analysis, we're just simply not going to do that. So phone lines are going to continue to be open. We'll continue to take the call here, but if that's really what you're then going to try and do a recourse to in other places, again, phone line will be open to you, but we might be closing off something. You might be excused from the other parts of it here if you're going to refuse to actually talk about the things as opposed to just kind of spew back and forth. Anyway, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Trying not to go too long, still making a liar out of me when it comes to the ideas and some of the comments we got and me going to in depth with them. But we got serious things to discuss at points, or even if we don't try to make these sermons because they still continue to make me sleepy. But let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, more calls, more comments, more everything we do on the line here. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. That number to call again, 915-544-5876. 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavier than usual traffic on the 54 northbound this afternoon due to that earlier crash that had closed the freeway. Between Trowbridge and Fred Wilson, it's a 33-minute delay, mostly bumper to bumper. Northbound Mesa is also slow from the downtown exit, slower than usual. Up to Artcraft, it's a 17-minute delay. A crash with injuries reported Railroad northbound at Gateway North, and an injury accident Gateway South at Pershing. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Unbound.org. Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at Unbound.org.
Hey Texas, there are approximately 950,000 individuals in Texas living with a serious mental illness, which is an individual risk factor for severe COVID-19. If you or someone you know is living with a serious mental health condition such as schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, make sure they know where to go this holiday season to stay safe and healthy. Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov to find resources and location information for vaccine providers near you. Stay healthy, Texas.
High inflation, worker shortages, COVID shutdowns. Texas small businesses have faced challenge after challenge. It's time for legislators in Austin to help Main Street and deliver needed tax relief. We need them to take action now and cut the inventory tax. This is our chance to stand up for Main Street. We can't let our small businesses down. Visit nfib.com/Texas tax cut and learn how you can help. Paid for by the National Federation of Independent Business.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
And now another no-brainer money-saving tip from Progressive.
Marcus, what happened?
I was changing my oil and I spilled some on the floor.
Oh, we'll use these $50 bills to wipe it up.
Perfect. Got any more?
Yeah, take a couple hundred.
Stop. Instead of using money, use an old rag. And here's a better tip from Progressive on how not to waste money. Don't pay too much for car insurance. Drivers who switch and save could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary.
There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at kcsmradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you very much for tuning in. However you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we continue to be up on, and at least part of the conversation going on there right now about various outlets being needed. It's part of the reason we do that, because whether it be on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, again, comments work slightly differently on different ones of those. Some of the other ones are more preferable when it comes to being able to actually post up some of those comments as we do, such as appreciate the support there from Monica Cervantes and things like that. And James Radcliffe, very excited to have been just in time to hear our last caller and other analysis and things like that. Again, if you actually want to talk about things, have a back and forth, you certainly can. I'll give one last parting shot here with Eric McNabb saying, this is quoting him directly, "You are bad faith in the worst ways possible, Polk." Again, I'm not even doing I'm just asking questions, as you can't fault me for doing that. I'm literally asking you where I was wrong with what I am saying. And if you can't answer that, but you're still calling me wrong and bad, you're calling that good faith? Literally? because whether or not you accept this as part of the definition, part of good faith actual discussion in my mind comes from the idea of assuming that the other party isn't an a-hole. Yes, I want to use other words there, but this is as close as I'm going to try to get, because if you're assuming that, well, everyone there is just awful, so I don't actually have to treat them decently, and no, don't come out with the whole tone policing thing, because honestly, how the message is presented is half of how it then ends up being purposeful. Like, you could be trying to teach kids about stop, drop, and roll, but if you're dropping F-bombs at them and calling them worthless little pieces of S, the message may not be that well received, just saying. So talking about things and actually having a discussion about it here, and see if I can write down what you're about to comment back on me on a comment card and like hold it up, which I basically did verbally here. Literally, it's just trolling at this point. And if you're just going to troll, you're going to be excused, and that's plain and simple. We're going to keep the phone line open, as we always do. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. But if you're literally just here to disrupt and not actually like talk about, discuss, etc. things, you're going to find yourself removed from some of the other outlets. Just how it's going to be. Anyway, let's get back with the phone lines now. Don't worry, guys. I'm having a great time doing all of this. Let's get to those phone lines, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have, I believe, Joe on the west side up now with us here. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Look, I just want to talk about a couple of things. And one of them was that gentleman that you had the other day that you interviewed. He's an NGO type guy. And he was a little upset with Abbott because Abbott has decided to investigate, or he at least is getting his attorney general to investigate these NGOs to see if they're corrupt, and there's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, a lot of us want that, a lot of us that have been in government want to see that they're not doing something wrong. And if he's not doing anything wrong, he doesn't have anything to worry about. And the other thing is that I also want to mention that about the documents that they're finding all over the place under Biden. The thing about it is that, all the presidents take documents, some more than others, but they all take documents to do their research when it comes to
like important issues, the national issues,
and the memoirs.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is that even though Obama took 30 million documents, there's no way that he can control that. There is no way he can control 30 million documents, especially President Obama. You have to remember, President Obama never had a full-time active job in his life. That was his first job. Now, he didn't have an active job because he was doing other things, maybe, and didn't have the patience to sit and work at a job that's got 8-hour job or 40-hour a week job. He didn't have the patience. So he was not going to sit there and go over 30 million documents and say, hey, these are good, these are bad, or these are not secret, these are secret. No way. He wasn't going to do that. Now, the other thing is, with President Obama, is that he's not going to sit there and write a book either and look at those documents. So what he did was he hired a bunch of people to help him write his book and to research the documents. So now you have people that are looking at secret documents, maybe top secret documents, that don't have clearances because they're helping him write his book. So my question is, hey, where does this stop? When do we stop giving them the right to take all the documents that they want, especially when we don't know what they're going to do with them?
So that kind of gets to a point that I've brought up earlier, particularly when it was, just the Trump situation we're talking about here, that it is undeniably the unilateral power of the chief executive of the United States, further known as the president, head of the executive branch, to declassify information, can of course do that with literally a word. There was at least one point brought up earlier towards the beginning of the Trump administration, I want to say, where there was something spoken to a Russian dignitary. Don't remember exactly who it was offhand, but the question was, did he just reveal classified information? And of course, the answer was, well, it may have been classified, but by him declassifying it, by speaking it in, in a public forum, that was kind of things like it was in front of press cameras, it would therefore no longer be classified. So it's undeniably the power of the ability to do that of the executive branch and the head of it. But then the question that I've kind of put forth is that, I mean, sure, that may be legally possible, but there are still considerations that you, I, and I'm sure a lot of other people would be concerned about when it comes to what exactly is within that. Because again, the extreme example I have used is the idea of, okay, sure, if the president wants to, say, declassify everything about how our nuclear systems work, the launch codes, those kind of things, I guess technically, legally, then under that power he could, and yet we would have a lot of questions and follow-ups to come after that, should that ever be the situation.
Yeah. That's I mean, very well said. But, the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't want to too much of your time. It was that I think there's a lot of smart people that call your station or your show, and I think a lot of them could be possibly participate in a sort of citizens committee to help the city or advise the city on how to handle the migrants or how to handle the migrant situation. Mm-hmm. It could be, a citizens advisory committee could be formed, help them, and I'm offering that suggestion. And I've done a lot of committees. I've done before, so I offer my services.
Fair enough here. Well, I appreciate the thought and the idea there. We've been essentially, I've kind of put out the call to don't let the thoughts, ideas, discussions end here solely on air, like take it into your real life. And that's a interesting concrete example of how that might be able to be done, kind of getting more into real space, so to speak, and not just on the airwaves and online is a goal that I do have and wanted to get more involved with this thing here. Don't have any kind of concrete way we're going to be able to achieve that, at least in the near term. I'm certainly not opposed to doing at least, meet up those kind of things in the future here and having people like get together, because as much as we try to have frank discussions and have people actually, talk about the things that are important to them in a, earnest way, because even in that case, what discussions that happen in person are almost entirely different, because there's another level of it. Because online, people scream at each other constantly because they don't think there's another person on the other end. But even in this format, some people can end up getting really worked up because there's not another person there. So I'd be interested in seeing how we could even have those discussions. So I will take it under advisement. I appreciate the suggestion there. And if we ever get closer to being able to move again into real space with this kind of thing, we'll certainly want to give you a ring.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, well, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right. And with that, let's go ahead and tell you what, take that next break right now. The number to call there, of course, if you want to get on the line, is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hey everyone, this is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. All northbound lanes of US 54 were closed for several hours today following a deadly crash. It happened this afternoon near Fred Wilson. Details were limited, but police say that at least one person was killed in the wreck. A dog that was tied to a wrought iron window guard is now helping comfort children in El Paso who have to testify in court. Buddy was rescued by animal protection officers after posts on social media were made about a dog that was cruelly confined in a yard in northeast El Paso. That was back on January 19th. Laws and Paws Animal Rescue took the dog in and was adopted. The dog went through training to become a certified therapy dog and now works at the DA's office as a victim's assistant therapy companion. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On Gateway North at Fred Wilson, a multi-vehicle crash has closed multiple lanes. And northbound on the 54, it's slow from Trowbridge to Fred Wilson with half-hour delays. I-10 eastbound Wyoming to Geronimo, that's an 8-minute delay going through downtown. Montana Avenue eastbound Hawkins out to Zaragoza is a 12-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather changes coming our way. Lows tonight dropping down into the 30s, so a cold start for your Saturday morning. Mild tomorrow afternoon, upper 60s to around 70 degrees. Breezy conditions with lots of clouds for our Sunday high wind watch already issued by the National Weather Service. Slight chance of a shower with the windy conditions on Sunday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Stand Up to Cancer.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
I never write reviews, but Navage is so amazing, I had to leave one. Nothing's ever cleared out my sinuses as well. I'm blown away by how Navage works. That's a review from Carrie, and it's one of over 100,000 online testimonials praising Navage. I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I've talked about flushing out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs. How Navage's powered suction can help you breathe better, and how your nose is the body's air filter, and Navage will clean it out. But don't take my word for it. What do people like Chad say, who wrote, Navage has helped clear out my nasal passages every single night. My wife says my snoring has gone way down. Snorefest be gone, unquote. Navage is the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million customers to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're getting to in and around and discussing here, but of course, Free for All Friday, that's what we're doing today. So, in the same spirit of that, more comments coming in online that will keep popping up as are relevant here, including a Patriot Chick saying VP doesn't have the authority to have classified documents in his possession. I don't think that's accurate because the vice president absolutely has a level of security clearance. So I think you're talking about the way it was being stored. Yeah, garage is not so much. I mean, heck, even when I was getting anywhere near the potential of being in the vicinity of classified documents, being anywhere outside of the SCIF was just not a starter. So, I mean, yeah, there's something to be talked about there about how it was maintained. But, I mean, the vice president is privy to national secrets. That is no secret, I would have to say here. So let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now. Again, the number to call if you want to get on, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. Just a comment here. You know, when we were small and we started growing up, of course, I had 11 brothers and sisters. And as we started going to college, one thing my dad always told us, don't think that book smarts should replace your common sense. And
Okay.
some callers think because I'm a philosopher, I've done all this reading, or I can do all this, or I'm a finance major, or I'm an engineer, or whatever, that they can just, throw common sense to the wind. And so every time I hear these phone calls, I think of my father telling me, Barbara, don't let your common sense go. So anyway, that's
probably a good idea.
But what I was calling about was these classified documents.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, maybe President Biden has access to top secret confidential information, like you say, but he doesn't have legal authority to declassify him as the vice president and remove him from the premises. So, and if you think about it, he has been in office since 1973. So it's pretty rich or bold for him to say that he doesn't know how they got there. I mean, if he didn't learn in 50 years what the process is as a vice president and confidential top secret documents were, it's impossible for us to believe he doesn't know how they got there. He says he keeps his garage locked, and then he kept the office closet locked, and then the other room was in the house, if I understand correctly. And the danger here is shortly after they did the Penn Biden Center, they started receiving in excess of or up to $70 million in donations from Chinese and anonymous donors. That needs to be revealed. And I wasn't aware, but this is the Penn office is apparently where Hunter wanted to get 2 keys, one for himself and one for his mother and the big guy. So there's a lot of questions to be answered here. Not only that, how is it that the DOJ knew on November the 2nd of these documents and held them from us till this week? And it's like they say, the cover-up is worse than the crime. So a lot of people had access. Oh, and then another question I have here is the company that Biden, Hunter, and his mother were going to be associated with. It was a company that they had promised, a Chinese company that they had promised access to our oil and gas industry and that they could purchase some of it. So that's another thing we need to figure out what's going on there. That's dangerous that we would have, I don't know what's wrong with my throat, that they would be associated with a Chinese corporation and they would be offering that incentive. So these are questions that need to be answered because, in my opinion, it compromises the administration and endangers our country. I mean, we saw what Biden did with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the millions of barrels that he sent to China. And that didn't help us. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was the safe drug consumption sites that the DOJ mentioned this week. They were thinking of opening them in various cities throughout the United States. Well, if you recall, when President Trump was there, he spent 2 years fighting against this company, Safe House, saying that it violated the Controlled Substances Act, and he fought it tooth and nail not to allow them to set up these safety drug consumption sites. Well, the DOJ, like I said, is considering opening them up. And my question is, if this is going to be the use of illicit drugs in a medically supervised setting, what if they come in with, they're going to come in with cocaine, with heroin, I don't know. What happens when they come in with fentanyl? What message are we sending the cartels? Oh, you know what? The United States has a program now where these drug addicts just go in and they show them how to shoot up safely and they intervene if something happens. So let's keep on sending the drugs. It's like I said, I don't think they ever see the full picture of what they're doing with their policies. And especially since it violates the Controlled Substances Act. Somebody should, the DOJ should know that. And I don't know why he would allow him being the top official in the United States, he would allow an organization to break the law and have these kids go there. But I wanted to, in addition, this is for Frankie, a shout out to former Governor Bill Richardson. He was instrumental in getting a Navy vet that was held in Russia. He was released, I think, this week. And this isn't the first time that Governor Richardson is instrumental in bringing, American prisoners from overseas back to the U.S. So I just wanted Frankie to know that. And another thing is, he keeps saying that we have that $130 billion excess in our budget. Abbott was just on TV this week, this is for Frankie, saying that he's going to give Texans a big property tax break. So that was encouraging for all of us. But anyway, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Well, actually, one more thing, if I have time.
Real quick, if you can.
Okay, I wanted to talk about Mayorkas. The Republicans are investigating the $500 million contracts that were non-bid. And Mayorkas was a bit squeamish about it when he got an email from his Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, and her name is Marcia Espinosa. She sent him an article where it said that there were being questions asked about the $530 million contract that was given to Endeavor. And Endeavor actually got a $530 million contract from HHS for additional housing in Pecos, Texas. Has anybody ever passed through Pecos?
I think I have, but I wouldn't be able to say for sure here. Driven a lot of across the state previously, so maybe I'll put it that way.
Well, if you blink your eyes, you miss it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But one of the things that an organization is concerned about is if there is a quid pro quo. And the reason they're saying that is the individual who is now working at Endeavor was on the select committee, which selected political appointees for top jobs at the HHS. And that the $530 million contract was issued by HHS. So these are things that I'm glad the Republicans are finally going to start investigating and see where the money's going, because our money is just so freely thrown out there that we need to know. Somebody needs to be accountable. And Mayorkas should know that he wasn't, I guess he wasn't versed in contracts. And so that's a danger to us. And our tax dollars are just being thrown away on a regular basis. So that's all I have to comment on today, Andrew.
I mean, there are important things involved in there. And yeah, I was right when you mentioned Bill Richardson. I had seen that go past about a release from Russia. I didn't realize it was, again, the former New Mexico governor involved there because, I remember it was, I can't remember the exact date, but someone from North Korea that he was instrumental in being a part of the release of, because, that before he was in, the governor's seat in New Mexico there, he was a, international diplomat on his own. And Flaco Jimenez, just because you brought it up there, saying that he drives through Pecos daily, it's ungenerous word involving excrement and hole. I'll say that there.
Yeah, you blink your eyes and you miss it. But Governor Richardson was also, I believe he was in the Clinton administration. If I'm not mistaken, I think he worked for the Clinton administration.
That does sounds right here. I haven't looked up his bio in a minute, but that sounds right.
Yeah, so maybe he should be the one bringing back that gentleman that's in Russia right now.
Yeah, the other one, yeah.
That didn't come home with
Griner, yep. That did come to mind for here. And so, he was I didn't realize this, according to Wikipedia here, he was the United States Secretary of Energy under the Clinton administration. And then he was also ambassador to the United Nations, which is probably closer to the duties and the skills we're talking about here.
Yes. So there are a lot of good things coming out of New Mexico other than their representative.
Fair enough here. Well, a lot more to get to there. There's at least one other point that I'm forgetting at the moment. See if I maybe think of it after we get back to the next call. But do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too as well here. So I think we got time for at least one more call before we hit that next break right now. We do have Kevin on the east side with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I have an idea about importing the Parquero system that they have over there in our neighboring city in Juarez. where when you're coming out of a parking space, especially backing up,
Mm-hmm.
they have a guy there who will sort of guide you out. And on your way out, you give them a quarter, at least in the old days. Maybe it's up to $1 now. I don't know.
Okay.
I would like to see that implemented here in our parking lots, especially in places where there is handicap reserve parking. Because those people, they have to have a sign up there that is in a steel barrier, or steel pole. And the only way they can go is backwards. And a lot of people who are handicapped, their eyesight is starting to leave them. They need someone to guide them out. And I think that would be a good idea. The only objection I can think of to having a parquero system here is that of liability. So the city or the county, one of those would have to pass an ordinance, so maybe have the voters do this, and say, okay, if you're going to use this parquero, you cannot use him as an excuse if you get into an accident. That's all I'm saying. So what do you think about that?
So I'll be honest, I'm not really familiar with this one. It kind of almost sounds like the concept of a tugboat, but for like parking cars.
Yeah, they have this in Juarez, or at least they used to have it.
Uh-huh.
Men would, and sometimes women, would guide the driver out of his parking space, hold up his hand, left hand or whatever, and with the right hand, motion the driver, okay, the coast is clear, come on out. And it's customer, it's expected that you would give this guy or gal a quarter. And I think there are many people here in El Paso who are either out of work or they need to supplement their income in these inflationary times. And it would work for them if they would volunteer to do this in crowded parking lots, such as by malls and
Yeah, sure.
that kind of thing. But the liability is the only thing that I can think of would be a hindrance to that. Well, what's your idea on that, Andrew?
I mean, it's an interesting one, this idea to get people working. Though I'm not necessarily sure that the idea of needing it to get people working. I mean, again, I keep going to all these places that have a lot of help wanted jobs here, so I'm not sure that will be. Honestly, might have trouble getting people into doing it, but it's an interesting concept. Anytime I've been over to Juarez has always been either in someone else's vehicle or taking a kind of a group transport, and we went straight to either a destination, dropped off at the front door, or like to someone's residence. So I never had a chance to experience that. I'll be honest, it was a long time before I knew what the Manifiesto system was, because I had no experience with that either. So I'm always interested when I learn about new things here, but I guess it's a possibility. I could see it being very useful for that, or even for like the crowded frankly, for the crowded parking malls. I mean, the whole predatory people queuing up behind you when they see your backlights come on, and then maybe actually help them direct it there. It's an interesting concept. I would, the liability would be the main thing that would come to my mind here. So I don't know if that can be waived by ordinance, but I've heard worse suggestions on ways to deal with that and to give people something to do.
Okay, maybe some of the listeners, I'm sure they've been over to Juarez and they know exactly what I'm talking about with the parqueros. So that's all I got, Andrew, and thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there as well.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we got to take that next break right now so you can squeeze in what we got coming back out of this break. But in any case, stay tuned until we got coming up for you in the coming week as we, again, take this and get closer to closing out the show. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The 54 Patriot and Gateway North are stop and go with 27-minute delays right now from Trowbridge up to Fred Wilson after a crash. Gateway North at Fred Wilson blocking multiple lanes. Slow traffic on Mesa from downtown exits up to Artcraft with a 10-minute delay. A stalled truck is blocking the right shoulder I-10 westbound at Viscount. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Stand Up to Cancer.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
El Paso, Does getting credit up to $150 a month to spend on everyday needs like food and over-the-counter products or to pay for utility bills sound good? Then ask about a United Healthcare Dual Complete plan. You'll keep all your Medicaid benefits and get more benefits at no cost to you. Call United Healthcare today at 1-855-UHC-MORE. That's 1-855-UHC-MORE. Benefits, features, and or devices vary by plan and area. Limitations and exclusions apply. Food, OTC, and utility benefits have expiration time frames. Call your plan or review your evidence of coverage EOC for more information.
Hey, Texas! This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions or starting your own. This winter, make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
And now another no-brainer money-saving tip from Progressive.
Marcus, what happened? I was changing my oil and I spilled some on the floor.
Oh, we'll use these $50 bills to wipe it up.
Perfect. Got any more?
Yeah, take a couple hundred.
Stop. Instead of using money, use an old rag. And here's a better tip from Progressive on how not to waste money. Don't pay too much for car insurance. Drivers who switch and save could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may have been doing so. And everyone who did tune in here, a couple of notes I want to leave you with here as we are, basically out of time here for this program. So if we weren't able to get to your call here, to apologize. Again, there's only so much we can squeeze into a couple hours, particularly if we get into the things here, as we tended to have. I mean, it's not always the purpose, but it is what it is. But a couple of things I want to leave you with here. We're actually going to be out of the office on Monday. It is, of course, the observed Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, so we'll have some replacements in with you there. But we're going to be back on Tuesday with you with Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., is who we're going to be having in to talk about some of those big stories and the in-depth reporting that they do, and even more coming up for you next week, including more on the legislative session, more on some of those questions y'all been asking about new laws and stuff like that. So a lot more coming up for you. And be sure to tune into the El Paso History Radio Show, airing tomorrow 10 to noon here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Going to be talking about the Texas Master Naturalist Program, what it is, the education that comes around with it, and of course, how you can get involved with it and become more or less a professional volunteer for a lot of organizations in our area to really get out and about and not just be kind of any geek off the street trying to come in and volunteer. But so we'll be back with you on Tuesday there. That show coming up tomorrow for you on the program. So we'll have to leave it there for this week, but another busy one. And I am sure the next one will be as well. So until next time, and again, I do appreciate everyone that does tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show in any way. If you actually want to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland and like we do on Beyond, well, this is the place to do it, and you're welcome to do so. So until next time, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening and rest of your weekend. Oh, by the way, we'll be going out to Pepe's tomorrow as well after the History Radio Show, but have a good one there. We'll see you all next week.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690
The 54 Patriot and Gateway North are stop and go with 27-minute delays right now from Trowbridge up to Fred Wilson after a crash. Gateway North at Fred Wilson blocking multiple lanes. Slow traffic on Mesa from downtown exits up to Artcraft with a 10-minute delay. A stalled truck is blocking the right shoulder I-10 westbound at Viscount. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
On the podcast, Hey Dude, the 90s Called, David Lasher and Christine Taylor, stars of the cult classic show Hey Dude, bring you back to the days of slip dresses and choker necklaces.
We're going to use Hey Dude as our jumping off point, but we are going to unpack and dive back into the decade of the 90s.
We lived it, and now we're calling on all of our friends to come back and relive it.
Listen to Hey Dude, the 90s Called on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.